Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this our tutorial, mathematics. This topic being displayed on the screen here is bearing and distances. This is a topic which is taught in Form 1 under scale drawing, and it gives people challenges all the way to Form 4. Let us look at this question. Airport S is 1,700 kilometers on a bearing of 300 degrees from Airport R. Airport Q is 800 kilometers on a bearing of 215 degrees from R. In the following figure, Airport R is represented by point R. So you realize that this is true bearing because the angles have been given into three figures. We always have compass bearing and true bearing. True bearing is given in 3 digits, but compass bearing is given in 2 digits. True bearing, all the angles are measured from the true north. So let us discuss this. If we have Airport S being 1700 kilometers on a bearing of 300 from R, so the first thing we need to do is to use a set square so that we can locate the point R. Using a set square, you will place it this way, and then at exactly R, extend the line R so that we have the east-west line, the way it is there. Then we want 300 degrees from the airport R. Remember that 300 degrees, we measure it from the true north going in clockwise direction. So if you move from north to east line, that is 90, east line to south line 180, south line to west line 270. So we need 30 degrees so that we have 300 degrees. So the 30 degrees, I will place my protractor this way, and then I use the outer scale because I am adding 30 degrees to 270 so that I get 300 degrees. So therefore, 30 degrees, I will put a dot at this particular point, that is at 30. Then I remove my protractor. Using the 15 centimeter ruler, I join the dot to the point R in this format. That is it. So it means that the Airport S is in this direction. But now we have been told to use a scale of 1 centimeter to represent 200 kilometers. So if 1 centimeter represents 200 kilometers, what about 1,700 kilometers? That will be 1,700 divided by 200. We get 8.5 centimeters. So using our pair of compasses, we should therefore measure 8.5 centimeters. We stand at R and make an arc on the line we have just drawn. So let me measure particularly the 8.5 centimeters, which is equivalent to 1,700 kilometers. So using your pair of compasses, measure 8.5 centimeters from your ruler, please. Once you measure 8.5, be as accurate as possible because this is construction. The 8.5 stand at R with the sharp point and make an arc on that particular line there. That becomes the Airport S. But now remember, we are doing bearing and distances. So at the point S, you must also locate the north line. We don't just do it manually, but we use certain rules. That is, we use set square and the ruler. Check. If I want to locate the north line there, then what do? I will simply place my 15 centimeter ruler on the east-west line exactly there, so that it is exactly on the line we drew for the east-west line. Then once I do that, Pressing that 15 centimeter ruler, I place my set square on that line. Place your set square so that it is in contact with the 15 centimeter ruler. Then you slide. You basically place it, let's place it this way. So once it is in contact with the ruler, I can now slide until I reach the point S, taking care so that the 15 centimeter ruler and the protractor are still in contact. When I realize that now it is exactly at the point S, I remove my 15 centimeter ruler and then draw a line. That becomes the north line at the point S. I believe somebody can now do that. Once I have indicated the north line, I now need the east-west line. So I use my set square again, take one line, let's say the 2 inches line mark, and let it lie on the north line. Then move it until it reaches the point S so that we can draw the east-west line. See here, we have the east-west line at this particular point. That is the process of drawing the north-south line and east-west line at the point S. Ensure you master that concept. We never draw it manually because if you draw it manually, this north line will not be parallel to this north line. So we must use a ruler and a set square. This distance is 8.5 centimeters, and the bearing is from the north line all the way to that line is 300 degrees. We proceed on to this particular point, Q now. We were told that airport Q is 800 kilometers on a bearing of 215 degrees from R again. So we must ask ourselves, if we want to measure 215 degrees from north line to the east line is 90, east line to the south line is 180. So if we talk about south line to the west line, that is 270. It has already exceeded 215. So what should we add to 215 to make it to 180 to make it 215? So we shall take 215 minus 180. Therefore, I'll measure 35 degrees from the south line. So we place our protractor here at this point, and then we measure. The way I've placed my protractor again, I'm going to use the outside scale. So in that bit, I will measure 35 outside scale, then put a dot at the 35. Once I place a dot that is visible, a very small dot, I join the dot to the point R. I join the dot to the point R in this format. Good. Then we are told that this airport Q is 800 kilometers on a bearing of 215 degrees. Using the scale of 1 centimeter to represent 200 kilometers, what about 800 kilometers? That is 4 centimeters. So using your pair of compasses, you measure 4 centimeters. Measure 4 centimeters as accurately as possible. Then, standing at the point R, make an arc on the line we have just drawn. That arc there qualifies to be the airport Q. Ensure that you are labeling so that you don't forget the marks. Then remember, it was from this particular point to this particular point, it is 215 degrees. That is 180 plus 35. Then the distance is 4 centimeters. It is not always advisable to use 800 kilometers or 1,700 kilometers here because we are scale drawing. So this is on the paper, we use the scale. So that if somebody wants to understand what the 4 centimeter is, he or she should use the scale to understand that this is equivalent to 800 kilometers. We are done with that. In the figure, airport R is is represented by the point R. Using a scale of 1 centimeter to represent 200 kilometers, show on the figure the relative positions of airport S and Q. We have shown, but now remember, at Q also we need the north line. So what do? We shall place our 15 centimeter rule again on the east-west line at R. Once we have placed it in that particular format, we bring our set square this way and let them be in contact, and then slide the set square until it reaches the point Q. Ensure that the set square is still in contact with the 15 centimeter ruler. Then at the point Q, withdraw the 15 centimeter ruler and then draw the north line at the point Q. That is it. Once I have the north line, I will now place again my maybe 1 inches mark on the north line and then bring it slowly so that I can locate the east-west line at the point Q. That is it. So that is the process of again identifying the north-south line and the east-west line in that particular point. Using the scale drawing, we are now in part B. Determine the distance from airport S to airport Q in kilometers. Before you do that, you must join the 2 points. That is S and Q. So let us join S to Q so that we can locate the distance. Let's see. S to Q joined is in that manner. Then we can use our pair of dividers to determine the distance from Q to S. Kindly measure. If you measure and try to be as accurate as possible, and I am transferring that length to my ruler, I am getting 9 centimeters. I'm getting 9 centimeters. So here I'm getting 9 centimeters. So I use my scale to convert it to kilometers. That will be 9 times 200, and that becomes 1,800 kilometers. Roman 2. The bearing of S from Q. Bearing of S from Q. So it means that they want the bearing from the north line here all the way to the black line. That was the essence of drawing the north-south line and the east-west line at the point Q. So we therefore measure this angle. Let me show you. We measure this angle theta here, and then we add to 270 degrees so that we get the bearing. So let us measure that particular angle using our protractor. Great. We have it there. According to my diagram, the measurement I am getting is, I'm using again the outer scale. It is 55. Let me check it carefully, as accurate as possible. It is at 56 degrees. So 56 plus 270 from your calculators, you get 326 degrees. So the bearing is 326 degrees. Part C. An aircraft flying at a speed of 400 kilometers per hour left S at 8 a.m. 8 a.m. Determine the time when the aircraft was exactly 1,000 kilometers from airport R on its way to Q. So this airport was moving to Q. To Q. The question we are being asked is, determine the time when the aircraft was exactly 1,000 kilometers from airport R on its way to Q. So we must therefore ask ourselves, this 1,000 kilometers is equivalent to how many centimeters? Using the scale, 1 centimeter represent 200 kilometers. What about 1,000 kilometers? Represent how many centimeters? If you cross multiply, you will get 5 centimeters. Therefore, measure 5 centimeters using your pair of compasses and your ruler. Measure 5 centimeters. That is equivalent to 1,000 kilometers. So once you have measured accurately 5 centimeters, stand at R with the sharp point and make an arc on the line joining S and Q. Very good. So at this particular point, when my aircraft is moving from S to Q, let me call it at the point T, this aircraft will be exactly 1,000 kilometers from airport R. So we need to determine that particular distance from S to T. So with the sharp point at T, you stretch it to S and then transfer the divider length onto your 15 centimeter ruler. If I do that onto my ruler as accurate as possible, that length from S to T, according to my ruler here, is 4.4 centimeters. That length is 4.4 centimeters. ST 4.4 centimeters, which I must convert to meters. So I'm saying ST is 4.4 centimeters. Convert this to kilometers using the scale. If 1 centimeter represents 200, yes, kilometers. What about 4.4 centimeters will represent what? You cross multiply and you'll have 4.4 times 200. We are getting 880 kilometers. So it means that this aircraft has traveled 880 kilometers along SQ when it is exactly 1,000 kilometers from the point R. Now, the question is, determine the time when the aircraft was exactly 1,000 kilometers from airport R on its way to Q. So we have been given speed. We know very well that speed is given by distance over time. So it therefore means that time is distance over speed. So our distance is 880 kilometers and the time is, and the speed is 400 kilometers per hour. Divide that so that we can get the time it took to fly from S to T. 880 divided by 400. That gives me 2.2 hours. That is 2 hours. And how many minutes? Convert 0.2 hours to minutes. You multiply by 60. That is 12 minutes. So the time required, therefore, will be 8:00 a.m. plus 2 hours and 12 minutes. If you add that, you'll realize that this is 10:12 a.m. This is the time when the aircraft was exactly 1,000 kilometers from airport R on its way to Q. That is it. So this bearing is marked with some error margin, which is as per the examiner's marking scheme. So that brings us to the end of that question. If you have a question, kindly put in the comment section. We shall tackle it as you send it. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe and view the next video. Thank you.